In this video, I'll be going through another Yin Yoga sequence. This involves poses that we hold for 1, 2, or 3 minutes depending on the position. Within each position, feel free to make adjustments as you need to. There's no perfect way to do each pose. I'll be doing the timings, but I won't always be talking, so you might want to put some quiet background music on another device to listen to while you're holding the positions. I'll be going through the mirror image of right and left because I'm facing the viewer. It doesn't really matter with these whether you start with the right or left side, as long as you do both sides. We're going to begin with a hand and knee position and moving into the Swan or Pigeon pose. So begin on hands and knees. Then we're going to swing the right knee forward under the shoulder and then take that foot out under the left hip. Now from here we're going to start to slide the left leg back, lower onto the elbows, grip the floor with the back toes, lift the knee, reach through the heel, then put the knee down and point the toes out. I'll start the timer now for 3 minutes. This is going to be a reclining pigeon or swan, so we can relax down to the front. In Yin Yoga, it doesn't matter whether we keep our hips parallel to the floor as we would in traditional yoga in the pigeon pose. But for the swan in Yin Yoga, it's okay if you need to shift your hips to one side or the other. For example, if you need to relax over onto that right hip, that's okay. See what feels best for you. Now notice that you are going to get a bigger stretch if this front foot is more forward. Or to make it a little easier, let that foot go further back. We can relax the head to the front. We can rest the forehead on your hands or on the floor. You can also turn your face toward the front knee, relaxing the cheek to the mat. If we need more support, we can place a block under the head. And if you're not finding this at all comfortable in your front knee, then we could lie in the back and do the lying figure 4. So you could cross that right ankle over left thigh, pull that thigh in. If you get tired of holding the foot, we could put a block under your foot. And would like to feel stretch here in this right outer hip and thigh, maybe a little bit to the inner thigh, mostly the back of the hip. Now another variation here is to use the wall. Have the foot flat on the wall, the tailbone grounded. The closer the hips are to the wall, the bigger stretch you'll get, but I would still keep the tailbone down so we can feel the stretch in the back of the hip a little bit to the inner thigh. So again, this is just an option if it's not comfortable to do the regular reclining swan or pigeon. So I'll go ahead and move back to the regular way to do this. We've got about 1 minute left here. Keep relaxing forward and also focus on your breathing. As we hold each position, I suggest a breath of inhaling for a count of 4, exhaling for a count of 8. That will help keep our mind's attention focused on the breathing and the mind not wandering. Also help to slow down the blood pressure and heart rate. Now we're going to lift to an upright pigeon or swan for 1 minute. Now if you're doing a variation of the figure 4 lying on the back, just stay there another minute. But otherwise, if you're doing the reclining pigeon or swan, we're going to lift upright. So hands alongside the front knee, lift up through the chest and head, but with the shoulders relaxed. And as we lift up, we're feeling some stretch in the hip flexor of this left side. Now feel free to shift around if you need to shift the hips to one side or the other. Again, see what kind of stretch feels comfortable for you. Remember the breathing and inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. A little over halfway done. Then we're going to move into child's pose for 1 minute. So press down to lift up and move your back knee forward so your big toes are touching. Knees can be a little wide as we lean to the front. Resting for 1 minute in the child's pose. Now we have some options here. We can stack fists under your forehead. We can even put a block under the forehead. Rest the forehead on the hands, or rest the forehead on the mat as you like. Now, if you're not finding that position comfortable, again, we have the option of lying on the back, hugging the knees in, whether you hold on top of the knee or behind the thigh, with the low back sacrum and tailbone down against the floor. A little over halfway done with this. Now we're going to go through that series on the other side. So then, starting on the hand and knee position, then we'll slide the left knee forward under the shoulder, swing the foot over. So we're pulling this left foot under the right hip, slide the right leg back, lower on the elbows, grip with the toes of the back leg, lift the knee, reach through the heel, then put the knee down and point the toes back. And now we're starting the time for 3 minutes. Remember our variations. Forehead could rest on the hands. Forehead could rest on the block. Forehead on the mat, or we could turn the head facing toward that front knee. But remember, if that's not comfortable, we have that option of lying figure 4. Left ankle crosses over the right, or again, we can put this foot against the wall if you need to. Keep relaxing into your stretch. Remember, you can shift the hips from one side to the other as you need to, pulling this foot forward for more stretch or letting it go further back for less. And keep inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. Halfway done. Now we're lifting to the upright version. So hands both sides of the front knee as we lift the chest to the front, relaxing shoulders. Now feeling stretch to the front of the right hip and the hip flexors there. Again, feel free to shift the hips around a little bit. Head tall, shoulders relaxed, find your best stretch. And if you're doing the variation lying on the back, you can just stay there another minute. Continue inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. About 2/3 finished. And now we're going to press up and take that back knee forward, lining up the big toes, leaning down to the front for child's pose. We'll stay here for a minute. And remember, if that's not comfortable, just lie in the back, again, whether on top of the knees or behind the thighs. Hands where you like them. Knees can be closer or wider. And go ahead and sit up. So next we're going to be going into the half frog pose, or we can modify with the half butterfly pose. So for this one, let's start with legs straight out in front. And then we're going to take the right leg and fold it back out of the way as we lean toward the left leg here. We're going to be holding this for 2 minutes each side. I'll go ahead and start the timer, and then I'll show some variations. Now, if you're not finding this back leg position comfortable, a variation is to just take the knee out and the foot to the inside, which would make this the half butterfly instead of the half frog. Another variation here would be sit up on the bolster, do the half butterfly sitting on the bolster. If you are on the bolster, it's possible to hyperextend this front knee. So be sure not to lock this knee out, but keep it just a little soft if the hips are elevated. And then another variation here is the Stonehenge position, where we construct a little Stonehenge from our bolster and the blocks. And we can just relax to the front onto that Stonehenge. And if you want to go a little deeper, then just take the blocks lower. So within these positions, feel free to adjust the front leg position as you feel gives you the best stretch. If you want to turn that leg out, you want to turn it in, flex the foot or point the toes, or modify a bit by bending the knee, that's fine. You can hold the foot, but if you hold the foot, we don't want to be pulling with active force, but just to hold it in kind of a passive way. And so I like to put the elbow on the block and then hold the foot and then relax forward. It's okay if the back rounds to the front as long as that's comfortable for you. If it's not comfortable, keep the back straighter. Otherwise, feel like gravity is pulling the head toward that front knee. As you continue relaxing, inhaling 4, exhaling 8. And we'll sit up, take that back leg to the front, and let's shake the legs around a little bit before we do the other side. Now take the left leg, fold it back, and then we're going to start to lean over the right leg. I'll start the timer for 2 minutes. Here again, we have those various options. We can make the Stonehenge. You can sit on the bolster with the half butterfly, or do half butterfly without the bolster. Any variations you like. Again, if you hold the foot, just not having any active force, just passively relaxing into the position. Time and gravity helps us get deeper into the stretch as we stretch out the fascia, the connective tissue that covers the muscle, and we get past the initial stretch reflex where our muscles try to tighten the first few seconds of beginning a stretch. Adjusting that front leg position as you need to, relaxing the head toward the knee, and we can inhale for 4, exhaling for 8. And now we'll sit up. We'll take that back leg forward. Again, shake the legs around a little bit. So next we're going on to the Dragonfly pose. We're going to take the legs wide in a V. Now this we're going to be holding for 3 minutes. So then we're going to lean to the front. I'll go ahead and start the timer for 3 minutes here. Make sure you're well grounded under the sit bones. You might want to pull back under the buttocks a little bit. And then we're going to lean to the front. Now, as before, if you wanted to make a Stonehenge, that's an option. We could also do something like stack the blocks, relax the forehead onto the hands on the blocks. And then feel free to adjust the legs. You may find turning the legs out is a better stretch for you, or turning in, pointing the toes up or down, or just relaxing the feet. If you need to modify, we could bend the knees a little bit as a modification. We also could sit on the bolster and then lean down to the front. Now again, if you are on the bolster, it's possible to hyperextend the knees, so make sure that they stay just a little soft as we're relaxing forward into that stretch. And so we're wanting to feel stretch in the inner thighs, under the legs, and into the low back. As you inhale, feel like you lengthen the spine a little bit. As you exhale, feel like you're folding deeper into the stretch. Inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. And time and gravity helps us slowly get deeper into that stretch. We're halfway done with this one. Now that's 3 minutes. Go ahead and sit up, and we're going to do a brief counter stretch. So lean onto the hands behind your back. Palms down, fingers point forward, or you can modify with the fist knuckles downwards. Rock the top of the pelvis forward, press the abdomen forward, lift the chest, look up, roll the shoulders back and down. Now for level 1, just stay here in a seated back bend, or for level 2, press through the heels to lift the hips. Looking toward the ceiling, moving into kind of a wide leg reverse plank. Take a few breaths here, lower the hips, use your hands to pull your knees up, bring your legs together. Our next sequence is the half saddle. I'm going to show some different variations and modifications before we begin so you can see some options for how you get set up. So if you have a block in the bolster, then an option is to put the block down, put the bolster on top so that we're making kind of a slope or angle here. And then sitting in front of the bolster, I'm going to bend the right foot back, the sacrum's up against the bolster, as I lie back here onto the bolster to relax. Now if you want to go a little deeper into the stretch, we could take the block out, do it without the block. Now another variation here is rather than using the bolster, we would use 2 blocks. And so we would take 1 block for our middle back to rest on, another one at a higher angle for the head to rest on. And then we can relax back this way. Now, if you're very flexible, you might be able to do this lying all the way back. We do want to keep the right knee down, and ideally these right toes are going to kind of tuck in toward the side of the body here versus turning out to the side. So that's a little easier on the knee if the toes turn inwards versus outwards. When we come out of this, rolling toward the straight leg side is the easiest. Now, if none of those are working for you, lying on the left side, holding the right foot from behind would be the modification. So I'll go ahead and start the timer now for 2 minutes. So getting into position, lying back, focus on your deep breaths, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. You may feel like there's a bit of a hyperarch of your low back here, in which case tuck the tailbone forward a little bit to reduce that low back arch. We do want to feel a good stretch in the front of the right hip and thigh. But if it's bothering the knee at all, then make adjustments so that front knee is feeling comfortable, that bent knee. Holding here for 2 minutes, relaxing into the stretch. We're halfway done. So coming out, we're going to roll onto the left side, releasing pressure from that right leg, shake the leg around a little bit and sit up. And then we're going to get set up for the other side. So readjust your props if you need to. This time we're bending the left foot back And then we're going to lie backwards again. I'll start the timer for 2 minutes. So using the props any way you need to, or remember the variation of lying on the side, holding the foot from behind if you need to modify. Focus on the feeling of stretch in the front of the left hip and thigh. And again, if you feel a big arch of your low back, tuck the tailbone forward slightly to reduce that a bit. Keep relaxing your stretch. Remember this left foot that has the toes tucked in a little bit to help protect the knee. Make sure that front knee feels comfortable and the front knee is down on the ground. Inhaling 4, exhaling 8. A little over halfway done. Now coming out, roll to the right side, release that left leg, shake it around a little bit, and then move the props so that you can lie on the back. And so, lying on the back, let's first of all take the right knee and hold on to that knee. Now if it's not comfortable to hold on top of the knee, you also could hold behind the thigh. Now let's pull the knee in toward the shoulder and take 3 breaths here. Keep your tailbone and sacrum grounded. Feel some stretch in the back of the hip. And then we'll lift the head toward the knee for another 3 breaths. Although if you need to modify and keep the head down, that's fine. Lie the head back. Now holding onto the right knee, pull the left knee in. Hold the left knee as you straighten the right leg out. Again, if it's not comfortable to hold on top of the knee, you can hold behind the thigh. We're going to pull the knee toward the shoulder for 3 breaths. Again, keep the sacrum and low back grounded. Now I have the option of lifting the forehead toward the knee for 3 breaths. Lie the head back, and then we'll pull the right knee in so you're holding both knees, whether on top of the knees or behind the thighs. Pull the knees toward the abdomen for 3 breaths. Again, keep the low back and sacrum and tailbone grounded. Now have the option of lifting the forehead toward both knees for 3 breaths. Still keeping the low back and sacrum and tailbone down. Lower the head, lower the feet, roll to the side, press hands down as you sit up. So now we're going to do the double leg forward bend or caterpillar pose for 3 minutes. Make sure you're grounded under the sit bones again, and then we're going to lean to the front. So we have lots of options here. We could rest the elbows on the blocks. We could stack the block, let's say stacking 2 blocks, perhaps resting the forehead on the block, or if you're more flexible, 1 block. We could build the Stonehenge and relaxing forward onto that Stonehenge. You also could be sitting on the bolster. So sitting on the bolster, waiting for support of the elbows on the blocks. So as I mentioned before, we don't want these knees to get locked out if the hips are elevated. So make sure the knees are just a little bit soft if you're in this elevated position. And so another option is to hold the feet. Now if you're holding the feet, we don't want to pull with active force from the arms. So rather than being active in the stretch, we're just passive, time and gravity helping us slowly get deeper into the stretch. Now if you need to modify, it's okay to bend the knees like this. If you want to experiment turning legs out or in, that's fine. Continue inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. We're halfway done. Feel like gravity pulls the head toward the knees. Okay, now we're going to sit up and let's lean onto your hands behind the back. So palms down, fingers point forward, or we can make fist knuckles down. And then let's bounce the knees around a little bit. And then we'll go into a seated back bend and or reverse plank. So rock the top of the pelvis forward, press the abdomen forward, lift the chest, look up, roll shoulders back and down. So for level 1, stay here, or level 2, press through the heels to lift the hips, looking toward the ceiling, making more or less a straight line from heels through hips, through shoulders, through head. Take a few breaths and lower down. Now we're going to scoot forward and come to lying on the back. And so we're going to bring the feet together, knees bent, and then we're going to cross the right thigh over the left thigh. We're going to be going into a twisted root pose or lying spinal twist. Now we could start with the left foot down, or we could start with the left foot lifted as you like. And then now we're going to be taking arms in a T, and then lower the knees down to the left. I'll start the timer for 3 minutes. Now if you need to modify this, we can get a block and you can rest the knee on the block. Now, if you don't need to modify with the block, we also could rest the left hand on the right knee to help pull the knee down. But we do want to keep this right shoulder and right shoulder blade down on the ground. You may either look at the ceiling or you may look toward the right hand, your choice. Either way. Now, it's possible, since we're holding for 3 minutes here, we might start to feel like that right hand's falling asleep. It might get a little tingly feeling. If that happens, slide the hand down to the back of the hip while being sure to keep that shoulder and shoulder blade down. Continue your breathing, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. Only stretching as far as is comfortable with that right shoulder down on the ground. Coming up on halfway done. Now we're going to slowly bring the legs up together, still keeping right thigh crossed over left thigh. Now pull both knees in toward the abdomen, whether you hold on top of the knees or if that bothers your knees, hold behind the thighs. Have the option here of lifting the forehead toward the right knee. Keep the low back and sacrum and tailbone pressing down. Feel some stretch to the back of the left hip. Lie the head back, uncross the legs, knees and feet side by side. And now we're going to cross left thigh over right thigh. And again, arms could start in a T. Option of that right foot down or the right foot lifted up. As we lower the knees to the right side, I'll go ahead and start the timer. If you need to modify, put a block under the left knee as it comes over. If you don't need to modify, we could use that right hand to pull the left knee further down. You may either look at the ceiling or you may look at the left hand. And as before, if you start feeling tingly in this left hand, then slide the hand down to the back of the hip, keeping the shoulder rolled back and down. Make sure to keep the shoulder and the shoulder blade down on the mat. Continue your breathing, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. The third finished. A little less than a minute remaining. Now slowly bring the knees up, still keeping left thigh over right. Again, pulling both knees toward the abdomen, whether you hold on top of the knees or behind the thighs. Again, option of lifting forehead toward the left knee. Keep the low back and sacrum and tailbone pressing down into the mat. Take a few breaths here. Lie the head back, uncross the legs, hold the knees. We'll circle the knees 10 times each direction. Feel massage of the low back and sacrum against the mat. Circle the other way. And then lower the feet. So we're going to now take 3 minutes to rest on the back on the mat. Now if you need to modify, you could put the bolster under the knees. We also could put a folded blanket under the head if you need it. I'll go ahead and start the timer for 3 minutes. Let the arms be alongside hips, palms turned up, shoulders roll back and down. Legs can be a little wide with toes and knees turned out to the sides. Observe how you feel after those Yin Yoga stretches. See if you're feeling energized and yet relaxed throughout the whole body. And focus again on the breathing, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8. With a full deep abdominal breath, the abdomen rises toward the ceiling with the inhale, sinks toward the floor with the exhale. Now wiggle the fingers and toes, roll the head side to side. Bring attention to the room around you. Bend the knees, flatten the feet. And rolling to the side, take a breath on the side. Press hands to the mat as you slowly sit up. So that's the end of that Yin Yoga sequence. Thanks for participating. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit like and subscribe. If you have any questions, you may leave them in the comments. And if you'd like to be notified when I post new videos, then hit the alarm symbol next to the subscribe button. Thank you.